Guys, welcome to the InvestorBet NFL Week 10 betting preview. I'm really loving betting on the NFL this season. I mentioned like way back at the start, way back in week one, that I was trialing a new strategy with approaching betting on these games from what I've seen across other sports, but also in previous years with the NFL. And it's really paying off. And, each week I'm super excited for the upcoming games. We've won 42 of our last 59 bets on the NFL. So going at over 71% strike rate, which is really good. And, if I could maintain that for an entire season all year round, then I think that would be amazing. So we've got 5 consecutive weeks profit, go for 6 with the games we're going to preview in a second. And these results with betting on the NFL isn't including any promotions. So if you have any bonuses back, etc., those kind of things, or early payouts, whatnot, they're all on top of those results. So that's not including any of those promotions. And that's the way I like to bet on sports, because obviously we can use the promote. Like basically, if you're living in Australia and watching this, or if you bet on Australian horse racing, using sports to supplement your horse racing betting. When it comes to the promotions that betting companies offer, their horse racing promotions are far and above better than their sports promotions. So what you want to do is use the horse racing promotions and maximize those like we do in the racing show and make hundreds of units profit every year doing that. And then bet sports, but don't use the promotions. Bet the sports like you're just a fan, like you don't really know what you're doing, but you actually do because you watch videos like this and you know how to break down a game and decide what bets to make based on actual information. But from the betting company's perspective, you just look like a fan. You just look like you're betting, on these sports because you're wanting to watch them. And then it helps maintain your promotions for horse racing and goes a long way towards your sustainability. Plus, you're making money from your sports bets as well, which I show you how to do, in these videos that I post to this channel and also my Australian sports channel where we talk about the AFL and NRL. But that's currently the game plan for the NFL. Go for 6 weeks consecutive profit right now. We've already had the Cincinnati at Baltimore game on Friday morning, which we won our bet in that game. I posted, a little reel to Instagram going through my thoughts on that game and how I was approaching it. So investorbet.sports is the Instagram channel where I post little things like that. If I don't have time before all the games start to get up a full YouTube video, and then I post everything I'm betting in the NFL Bet Finders, which you can access through the link in the description. That's where you get all the exact bets once I've fully decided everything that I'm betting. Also, right now, we're betting on the NBA. The season is 2.5 weeks old. Currently, we've had 54 bets so far. 33 of those have won, so we're going at 61% currently in the NBA. And majority of those, it's been a little bit weird, majority of those 21 bets that have lost out of the 54 were only due to blowout matches. I think 16 or 17 of the 21 were blowout games where the players that we targeted in that matchup played significantly less minutes than they generally average throughout the season. They're only playing like 22, 23 minutes as opposed to 34, 35, 38 minutes, which we can see when those games are a little bit closer, which you can kind of sometimes feel like a game could be a blowout, but sometimes, they're evenly matched up sides, but one team doesn't turn up on that night, which can happen in sports like the NBA, NHL, MLB, those kind of things that are played majority of days, or teams are playing every second day for the most part. But overall, we're flying in the NFL. 49 of our past 50, 42 of our past 59 NFL bets have won, and then 33 of our past 54 NBA bets have won. So now looking ahead to this week's games, as I said, we've already gone through the Cincinnati-Baltimore game. First game, we'll look at New York Giants at the Carolina Panthers. This game is being played in Germany, so at a neutral venue, and it's not really like the best teams to take over to Germany to showcase the NFL. Both these sides are going really terribly. Firstly, they're both 2-7 overall on the season. Carolina broke through for a win last week against New Orleans. They are 6.5-point underdogs for this game. They're originally only a 1.5-point dog, but the Lions pushed out to make the Giants a 6.5-point favorite, and the total is 43.5 down to 40.5 points. Looking through the numbers for these sides, both of them struggle against the run, and a lot of that is due to the fact that teams get leads against them and then run the ball a lot. But they're also both ranked poorly, as you'll notice here, in ranked 32nd in yards per attempt and ranked 20th in opponent rushing yards per attempt. So both of these running backs, and Singletary and Hubbard, should have big games on the ground. Expect lots of running plays. The Giants are able to throw the ball a little bit. Their numbers aren't great, but they do have the 11th most or 7th most pass attempts per game. Carolina, those numbers are below those, ranked 15th in number of pass attempts. And what should be a fairly close game, I expect a lot of rushing plays, so definitely be targeting the running backs in that Giants-Carolina game. The New England Patriots at the Chicago Bears. Chicago are currently -6 for this game. That line hasn't moved since opening, and the total is 42 down to 38.5 points as it currently stands. New England are 2-7 overall on the season. They've only won one of their 5 games on the road. Chicago sitting at 4-4. This is an important game for them to get above 500, have a winning overall record. They've lost their past 2 on the road. Back at home here. At home this season, they are 4-0. Those wins coming against Jacksonville, the LA Rams, Tennessee, and Carolina. So not really great opposition. The Rams probably the best of those 4 sides. They beat the Rams 24 points to 18. That was back in week 4. Off a couple of weeks on the road, back at home. I think that's a good situation here for the Bears. New England are average or worse against both pass and run, so that should open up both sides of the play for Chicago. They should win the game. They're a little bit hard to trust, but at home can be a little bit more confident in their performance. Chicago struggle to stop the run, and if that is the case in this game, Stevenson should be playing for the Patriots. They are ranked 29th in the league in rushing yards per attempt. If New England get their running game going, that's going to help them a little bit. I think that should be their focus. Don't think they're going to be able to throw the ball that successfully against this Bears pass defense. So that's going to be their play. I think Patriots need to rely on the running, get that running game going. And then for Chicago, I think they can have success both passing and throwing the ball. And at the end of the day, should be doing enough to win this game at home. It's definitely a very, very winnable matchup. Buffalo at Indianapolis. Buffalo -3.5 is the current line. They're originally -2, so its line has moved slightly there in favor of the Bills, and the total has stayed at 46.5 since opening. You'll notice straight away that Buffalo clearly the better offensive side in overall metrics, passing metrics, and then for the most part, rushing metrics. It's a bit more even though between the 2 sides there. And then Buffalo also the better defensive side at stopping the pass. Not so great against the run, ranked 25th in yards per attempt. That's definitely a key area of improvement. Buffalo is 7-2 overall on the season. Their only losses against Houston and Baltimore, both those games against good teams. Indianapolis are now 4-5, so slight losing record, but are 3-1 at home. They have played the majority of their recent games on the road. 4 of their past 5 have been away from home. So them getting back home is definitely helpful for them. Their only one home game since week 4 was in week 7 against Miami, which they won 16 points to 10. For this game, I think Buffalo should be winning there. Clearly the better side, both sides of the ball. They have a lot of avenues that they can exploit to win this game. I think Indianapolis are going to need to rely on running the ball. Are going to need to throw the ball a lot here to win this game. I think they could get their running game going a little bit, but to be able to beat Buffalo and put up enough points, they're going to need to throw the ball. Don't know if they're just going to be able to do that enough. Their pass on target and bad throw percentage against this Buffalo defense, ranked 32 and 31, is a major, major problem for them. And I can see Buffalo, definitely getting stops and doing enough to win this game. So I like the Bills to beat Indianapolis and move to 8-2 overall on the season. Next game, we're going to look at Minnesota at Jacksonville. For this matchup, let me find the odds real quick. Minnesota are currently -6.5. The line opened -4.5, so moved up a little bit since opening. And the total 45.5 down to 43.5 Minnesota coming off a win by 8 points against Indianapolis. Three of their past four games have been at home. They've only had three games on the road this season. Of those three games, they've won two against the Giants and Packers, and then lost the game against the LA Rams. You could throw in the game that they played over in London as well, where they beat the New York Jets as a win to put them 3-1 on the road. That was classed as a home game for them there. But 6-2 on the season compared to Jacksonville, who are 2-7 at the season. They've had four home games going 2-2. For the Jaguars, of those home games, they beat New England and Indianapolis and lost against Cleveland and Green Bay. Both those losses, though, were by small margins. They lost by Green Bay by 3 points and Cleveland by only 5 points. So we're in the game in both of those. Minnesota, I don't think they're playing as well as they were in the first 5 weeks of the season. They definitely regressed a little bit. They were putting up, numbers that were very, very difficult to maintain, but still performing really well on offense. Their pass defense is still going pretty well. Teams really have high numbers of pass attempts against them because you can't run the ball against Minnesota. They're definitely clearly top three and overall ranked number one rush defense. With that in mind, and Minnesota favorite, they should win the game. Jacksonville are going to have to throw the ball. They're not going to be able to run the ball. They're already rushing numbers, if we scroll up, are okay, but aren't really that great. They're already a team that rely on higher pass attempts than rushing attempts. And so that's going to have to continue here. So can see them throwing the ball a fair bit and trying to capitalize. So I'll be looking at the Jacksonville passing yards and Minnesota to be winning. I think Minnesota will turn to the run game a little bit to try and close out this game. But Jacksonville's pass defense is terrible. So I can't see like Minnesota having too many drivers where they don't work the ball down the field. Their opponent drive score percentage ranked 28th in the league. Don't force any turnovers, only at 4%, which is second worst. And opponent third down conversion percentage at 44.5%, so ranked 26th in the league. And also this is another big indicator, opponent red zone touchdown percentage, almost 70%, which is second worst in the league. Against this defense, Minnesota should produce plenty of points and enough to win this game. Then we have Denver at Kansas City. This is a game I don't think is as straightforward. We've spoken about like Kansas City just consistently find ways to win games. The lines moved slightly in favor of Denver, -8.5 for Kansas City down to -7.5, and the total's 41.5 and stayed at that number. Kansas City are undefeated, 8-0 on the season. They consistently just find ways to win games and are never out of it. Denver 5-4 overall on the road, back-to-back weeks. They lost 41-10 against Baltimore last week. Now play Kansas City. Definitely a really tough couple of weeks for them here. Prior to that, they had games against the Saints and Carolina, so it does even out a little bit. Kansas City are on a short week here, but they're playing back-to-back home games, and as I said, Denver on back-to-back road games. I think that cancels it out a little bit. Both teams are good defensively, which can sometimes breed like a close game and a close result. And it's not like Kansas City have really been blowing teams out this season. Majority of their wins have been by no more than 2 scores, but a lot of them by 1 score. I can only see 2 games that they've won by double digits, one against San Francisco by 10 and New Orleans by 13. They come off that win last week against Tampa Bay where they had to win the game in overtime. And so I feel like, Denver, Bo Nix is slowly improving. His numbers are getting better through the season. I think he'll have a little bit of success here against the Chiefs, who do have a lot of injuries. So with what Kansas City is doing with the amount of injuries they have, it's very, very impressive. And look like they're going to be hard to beat against this season. I think the key thing to look out for this game is looking at how often teams get to the red zone. You'll notice here that Kansas City ranks 6th in red zone opportunity, also, and the number 1 team on third down. I think Patrick Mahomes went 9 from 9 or something like that through his first through the game against Tampa, hitting all his third down attempts through the first half or into the third quarter. I remember seeing that flash up. And then defensively, Denver give up the second least number of red zone opportunities. So if Kansas City can, this is like the number here for Denver that's helping their defense be so strong. They're keeping teams up the field, and it's the reason they're only conceding under 18 points a game. But we've got a side who are capable of getting down there. I feel like, Kansas City win this game, but they're currently $1.25 looking at on the money line, which I do think is far too short. I would say $1.40, $1.45 for me would be a bet on Kansas City, but $1.25 is definitely too short. Teams that are 8-0, there's the chance, they're closer and closer to getting to losing a game. Probably don't think this is going to be the one, but you got to look for value in prices, and their current odds definitely aren't it. Do expect they win the game. From a betting perspective, I don't really have anything I'm super strong leaning towards in this game. Think Denver are going to have to throw the ball. Kansas City's rush defense is good, and they need a back in Bo Nix, which has been working for them recently, like with those wins against Saints and Carolina. Still put up good numbers last week against Baltimore, but they are the worst pass defense in the league. But overall, as a current sense, I don't really have too many, like a strong opinion on that game. So I'm not going to, keep on going on about it. Then we have Atlanta at the New Orleans Saints. New Orleans were expected to win last week, didn't get the job done. I think they were the biggest favorite that lost outright losing to Carolina. This line opened Atlanta -1.5. It's out to -3.5. The total is 44.5 up to 46.5 points. For this game, Atlanta have won 5 of their past 6. They only lost at home against Seattle. They're 3-0 on the road this season, beating Tampa, Carolina, and Philadelphia. New Orleans have lost 7 straight games. They got Derek Carr back last week, but it wasn't enough to win. They won their first 2 games with 47 and 44 points, but since then have lost 7 straight. They're obviously in desperate need of a win, get back home after back-to-back road games, but there's not a great deal between these sides in the NFL, but losing to Carolina makes New Orleans very, very tough to take here against Atlanta, who are a pretty good offensive side, especially with throwing the ball. Against this, New Orleans pass defense, which is ranked 22nd and 28th in yards gained per attempt and per completion. I think they'll have plenty of success throwing the ball. Neither team are really good at defending the run as well. So lean towards probably a high-scoring game. We know Atlanta have plenty of points in them. And I think that'll be the case. I think this will be a high-scoring game. The total only at 46.5, I feel like is slightly low for this matchup, and I'd be leaning towards it being a higher scoring game. New Orleans against this Atlanta defense, one other thing I want to quickly mention is we look at the pass defense for Atlanta. You'll notice here they concede the least yards gained per completion to the opponent. And New Orleans is going to have to rely on a lot of short passes here to work their way down the field. So I'd also look at Carr's number of completions as a potential bet, maybe more so than the number of yards. But if Atlanta are leading the game, then the Saints are going to have to rely on the pass even more than they normally would. The 49ers at Tampa Bay. 49ers coming off the bye into this matchup. They are favorites currently -6.5. The total, the line opened -4, so moved out 2.5 points. There's a lot of money for favorites this week. 46.5 is the total out to 50.5. So that has gone right up. Tampa on that short week after losing in overtime against Kansas City. They get back at home here, so that's definitely in their favor. They've only had 2 home games across their past 5 games. So that's definitely in their favor. They have now lost 3 in a row. They're still scoring. They've scored 51, or they've scored 33, 30, 51, 31, 26, and 24 across their past 6 games, but they've only won 2 of those games against the Eagles and Saints. Against the 49ers, who defensively are about an average side, not super strong, but not poor either. Their rushing defense is better than their passing defense, so Baker Mayfield should air the ball out quite a lot here to try and get Tampa the win as big underdogs at home. Can see this being a high-scoring game as well. San Francisco definitely in the need of the win. I think they'll get up early, which should enable Tampa to throw the ball as well. Both these teams, top 6 offenses across the board, but San Francisco, the better defense, which should be enough for them to win the game. But I'd be strongly looking at the passing yards for Mayfield. And also, for Purdy as well. This Tampa pass defense really isn't that great. They give up the most number of completions and the 26th ranked completion percentage, also the 3rd most passing yards to opposition teams. So there's lots of good angles to play on that game. Then we have the Pittsburgh Steelers at Washington. For Pittsburgh here, they are coming off the bye. They're 6-2 overall in the season, so going really, really well. Washington as well, going at 7-2 on the season. Preseason is probably not a game where you felt like both these sides would be going at around a 70% or so or higher win rate at this stage of the season, but that's exactly what we have here. Pittsburgh were originally 1.5-point favorites. Now Washington are 2.5, likely off the back of the fact Jaden Daniels is expected to play this game. The total 43.5 up to 45 even it currently stands out. Washington are the better offensive team and Pittsburgh are the better defensive side. So you got, two opposing game styles going up against each other here. For this game, Washington are going to have to rely on their passing game, which they've kind of veered away from a little bit in recent times compared to earlier in the season. Still have a really great completion rate, and their yards gained is still really, really high and well and truly entrenched in the top 10. So I think Washington, their passing yards should be nice and high for this game. Pittsburgh likely rely on running the ball. And as Washington have the near worst rush defense, if we scroll down to quickly take a look at that, giving up the 3rd most rushing yards per Tampa and Pittsburgh's run defense is really good. That's why I think Washington are going to throw the ball a lot. So I'll be looking at Jaden Daniels' passing yards and Najee Harris's rushing yards as the strong leans in that game. And you could also look at the Washington receivers and their passing yards. There's lots of different things you can look at. We can go through like the defense versus position and break that down as well. And then the trend for the players and the number of yards. So you can look at the milestone markets as well. But that's obviously getting beyond this video, and we can sit here for like 2-3 hours and keep on going through it. Tennessee at the LA Chargers. Interesting game, this one. The Chargers are -7.5. They're over -4. Totals moved down from the 43.5 to 39. Tennessee at 2-6 on the season. They got a win last week in overtime, beating the New England Patriots. And then the Chargers are 4-3 on the season. They're 2-0 or 2-1 at home. Sorry, their one loss against Kansas City Chiefs. The Chargers have won the Chargers have played 5 of their past 7 games on the road. So only the 3 home games so far. First in week 1, week 4 against Kansas City, and then week 8 against New Orleans. So been traveling a lot back at home here. That's definitely in their favor. Tennessee coming off a home game last week, but this will be their 4th road game across their past 6. So it's definitely, situationally very much in favor of the Chargers. They're big favorites, $1.27 currently on the money line. Probably expected to win. I feel like they've been a little bit of a hard side to trust, but, have been getting the wins on the board. I think the key here for LA is they are a pass-heavy side, so they rely heavily on the passing game. These right here are their passing statistics, and then compared to their rushing numbers, we're in the bottom 10 in the league for most categories. This is the strength of their gameplay under Justin Herbert. However, Tennessee are one of the best pass defense. So can the Chargers get their passing game going against this defense? And then can they get the running game going on the back of Kyren Williams, considering the Tennessee Titans aren't the greatest rush defense? They're still all right, but not quite as good as they are at defending the pass. That's, I feel like, what this game comes down to. I don't have, I feel like the Chargers kind of in that similar boat as Kansas City, where they're at the $1.25 range. Is too short for the kind of game that they have and the setup that they have. So I think they should be more so that $1.40 range. So probably staying out of them from a side perspective. And you just definitely got to be cautious. In the NFL, it's definitely not a sport where you can, multi up the $3.25 teams into a even money multi and then just expect they're going to win. Teams at this $1.20 range get beat all the time. So there's no like guaranteed wins in the NFL. That's one thing I definitely learned back in the day of, approaching it kind of like I did with like the AFL and NRL when teams are clearly better than their opposition side and they're $1.15, $1.20. You think that, they're guaranteed to win. In sports like the AFL and NRL, those teams hit at a high rate. Not so much in the American sports. There's a lot more strategy involved. Coaches can have a lot bigger influence on a play-by-play basis. And I think that definitely contributes to it. Then we have the New York Jets at Arizona. Jets broke through for a win last weekend. They're a side that just like it's just unbelievable how many things they do wrong and in a way sabotage themselves from winning games. They've lost 5 in a row before they won last week. They are 1.5 point favorites. So only very small favorites here against the Cardinals. The Lions moved down 1 point. The totals moved up from 45.5 to 46.5. Arizona have won 3 straight games. So they come into this in good form. Another home game for them. So back-to-back home games for New York. I think this game is just kind of comes down to can you trust the Jets? They're the better side, but this is like it's just crazy to watch like teams at the highest level with the players they have and how many those like simple mistakes they make, like dropping the ball. Obviously, that was by the rookie, dropping the ball, running into the open end zone. But then twice, they interfered in a field goal attempt and then a punt and nearly cost themselves the game or, made the game a lot closer than it really should have been last week against Houston. But they got the win in the end, and I guess that's like the main thing that matters. For this season, the Jets are 1-4 on the road, and obviously, if you look at that, it makes it tricky for them here against the Cardinals side, who have won 4 of their past 5, including their past 3, and have also won 3 of 5 at home. The only losses against Detroit. There's no knock on that, where they lost by 7 points, and then by Washington, where they are blown out in that game. If I had to pick a side here, I'd lean towards the Jets. I just think they're the better overall side. I think for New York, there's going to be a heavy reliance on passing the ball. The Arizona pass defense is pretty poor, ranked in the bottom 10 in the league for most categories. So I think New York get on the back of Aaron Rodgers, throw the ball. That's their best chance of winning. That's what they did last week to beat Houston. And I think that is what eventuates again in this game. So I'd be definitely looking at Rodgers passing yards. Philadelphia at Dallas. Dallas are just they're kind of another team similar to New York, but they're probably going even worse. They open 2 point favorites now. Philly a -7.5. There is question marks on Dak Prescott. As I recall this, I'm not 100% sure if he's playing. Wouldn't surprise me if he is out. He was benched early in the game last week in Dallas's loss when they lost to Atlanta. They have had a number of games on the road. 4 of their past 5 have been on the road. So back at home here, that is probably the only like positive I could guess you could say in their favor. But they have lost 3 straight. Philadelphia 4-0 since their bye. They had their bye in week number 5, I think it is. And since then, have beaten Cleveland, the Giants, Bengals, and Jaguars. So playing really, really well since the bye. They've scored 20 plus in all 4 of those games and 28 plus in 3 of those 4. Dallas's defense is really, really bad. They can't stop the run or the pass. So I think this just sets up really well. And of these sides that are in this $1.20 range, Philadelphia is the most likely winner, even though this is a divisional matchup, which, can sometimes make things tricky from, taking a road favorite perspective. But, every category, Philadelphia is better than Dallas in as the way they are playing this season. And if Prescott is out, then that massively reduces the Dallas's passing game as well. Add to the fact they don't have a running game. There's lots and lots of issues for them there. So And I think looking at it, Philadelphia's pass defense is very, very good, top 10 in a number of categories. So I think there's a lot of issues for Dallas, and Philadelphia will win this game and win it very, very comfortably. Two more games to look at. We got Detroit at Houston. Detroit playing really, really well this season. They've won six straight. Only loss was this year was in week 2 against Tampa Bay. Houston have now lost 2 of their past 3 games. Detroit, 3.5-point favorites. The total's 50 down to 49. Detroit, we've spoken about previously, like they're a very, very good offensive side, ranked number 1 in points score, but they don't rely on, putting up huge passing numbers to get those points. Like they just keep getting first downs on the ground with the Montgomery and Jamar Gibbs running game. The thing in favor of Houston here is they are 4-0 on the season. All those wins, though, were by 4 points or less. So when they've been winning, which they have been at home, they've only been doing it by small margins. I think Detroit should run the ball a lot here against this Houston rush defense, which really isn't that great. Their pass defense is pretty good, was exposed a little bit. They also give up big yards per completion. So if you can generate the completions against them, which Jared Goff has the number 1 pass on target percentage, then that's definitely in Detroit's favor. I think they get the win in this game. And Detroit put up big running numbers playing from in front. Houston, CJ Stroud at home, his numbers are better throwing the ball than they are on the road. And against this Detroit pass defense, I think they should have a fair bit of success. And this is another game where I wouldn't be surprised at all to see a high scoring matchup. And then final game, I'm not really one I'm super excited about. Miami against the LA Rams. Couldn't find really many angles to get super excited about here. There's fairly even odds wise. The Rams have stayed a 1-point favorite. The total's moved up 49 to 50.5. Miami have lost 6 of their past 7 games. The only win against New Orleans, against New England. However, Tua back in the team, and I think this is now his 3rd game back. The Rams have won 3 straight. This is their 4th home game in their past 5, so haven't had to pretty much travel at all. That's definitely in their favor here. Should give them a little bit of an edge. Expect Miami heavily focus on passing the ball in this matchup. The Rams pass defense really isn't that great. They give up the most yards gained per attempt and per completion, and their run defense is okay. If teams can throw the ball, which Miami are a fairly good passing side, their numbers are definitely look worse than they actually are when they are at full strength. So you definitely want to keep that in mind. Think they'll be throwing the ball quite a lot. LA have the better offense overall, numbers-wise. However, Miami's defense is pretty good. So it's a tricky game to call from a side perspective because the setup favors the Rams, but overall numbers-wise, I feel like Miami is the slightly better side. So that's why I also do feel like the bookies are struggling to separate them a little bit here. Probably at the value, I'd lean towards Miami if I had to pick a side, but I think the props is the way to go. Miami passing yards, receiving yards, and leaning towards a fairly higher scoring game, especially as the final game of the round. So that's how I'm looking at playing the games this week. Hopefully this preview gave you some insight into the ways to approach betting on these games. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. If you have any questions about any of the games, or how I approach betting on the games, or anything you want to know about betting in general, feel free to put it in the comments below under this video. I'll make sure I reply to every comment. I created this channel alongside my Australian sports channel to help provide information so everyone can make money betting on their favorite sports, whether that's the NFL, whether that's the NBA, whether it's AFL, NRL, soccer, whichever sport. Over the years, I've constantly added in sports, been doing this full time since 2012. But over the years, added in sports, started with the Australians, then in around the 2014-15 year, so almost coming up on 10 years now, added in the US sports as well to add some additional income streams through the off season for the AFL and NRL, and then alongside with horse racing as well. So that's why I built the tools like the Bet Finders that you see here. Everything that I do, I post in the Bet Finders, and also you get access to all the tools I use to research games, like all these tables and statistics and rankings and player performance numbers and projections are all included in the Bet Finders. So you have the exact same tools that I'm using to research. So definitely check it out. We're just over halfway through the season now, where the end of last week was the halfway point. And so we'll keep on going and keep on building on our profits right the way through to the Super Bowl. So super exciting times coming up over the next few months. Really appreciate you guys watching, and good luck with your NFL bets this weekend.